Hello, Nomads, and welcome to episode 110. I don't know. That feels like a milestone to me. My name is Brandon. I will be your host for this episode. And today we're going to be going for a little walk. A little walk in the woods, a little journey for a couple days. But I'm not going alone. I got to bring some buddies with me. First up, I'm bringing over Eric.
Chopper, sick 'em boy. Now he said sick 'em boy, but what I heard was Chopper, sick balls.
And Dave.
This is my age. I'm in the prime of my youth, and I'll only be young once.
Ooh, yeah. That's
very topical.
That actually kind of hit, man.
Yeah, it hits home.
Right? That one hit him, yeah. And new friend to the show, Nikki. I just said it like that. I don't know why I said it like that.
No Ace, just you.
Just you,
Now,
baby.
Yeah.
Nikki, real quick, welcome to the show. You actually have a few things going on your side, but if there's anything you want to plug, now is the time because we're going to get right into talking about Stand By Me.
I would say if you're interested in me, you can head to nickpacone.com or ironagemarketing.com and you'll learn about what I do there.
Short, sweet, to the point. Love
Yeah,
it.
I like
All
it.
right, good.
Another marketing
Right.
friend too. which
Yes.
Always welcome. They
I knew to keep it short, right?
There you go.
Yeah, so we're in the middle of summer. It's July 2023 right now at the time of this recording. And I don't know, we were thinking about some movies. I think Dave might have thrown this one out there, but he was like, man, a movie like Stand By Me really is a summer movie. Even though it takes place Labor Day, specifically, we're recording
Late
just
summer.
after,
Still technically summer.
It's like late summer, end of summer.
Yeah, and we just wrapped up 4th of July, but it still felt like a summer movie. Been a while since I saw this, and it's so busy making the show, but I did, last second, tweet the question, I don't know, what did people think of this movie?
Sure. Our tweet said, "What do we think of this classic?" Which, yes, agreed. It's classic. Over at Nomads of Fantasy on Twitter, Kylan Savage said, "For that run he did in the 80s and 90s, basically Spinal Tap to A Few Good Men, I'm always surprised Rob Reiner never feels like a part of the conversation about people's favorite directors."
Excellent
That is
point.
True. He does have a pretty good resume.
He's also very polarizing on Twitter, which I think kind of
Oh,
Oh,
really?
Okay.
upsets why people think of him.
Right. Okay. So that could throw off his cachet a
Stephen
little
King,
bit.
which this movie is based on, I
It's the
follow him
same
on
way.
Twitter, and that guy, he just
No filter?
Between
No
the two
filter.
of them,
No
they
filter.
have made it very clear who they do not want listening to them or going through
Yeah.
the material.
Hey, man, it makes it easier, for
Yeah.
fans.
Shoot the Flick says, "Love it. It's on my list to show Frankie for our show." I would love if they did it on their show. That'd be awesome. When more
Get in
people
there.
get more podcasts
Absolutely.
about Stand By Me. I don't think I've ever seen a podcast doing a movie review on Stand By Me. I'm sure they're out there, but I'm gonna say that we're the first and best one. So,
Sure.
the Psych Effect podcast simply says A+.
Mm-hmm.
And Quad Pro Quo podcast says, "Love thinking of picking it as my choice when we do our Stephen King month in October." So there you go.
Fantastic.
Got other
Yeah.
people thinking about
Add
doing
it
it.
to the list.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
That's
even
great.
Stephen King said it. I think it was at the time he said that he thinks that this was the best adaptation of his his books to film at a certain point. It might have been during one of the anniversaries. But
Well, horror in general is incredibly difficult to translate to the screen in like a good way,
Yeah.
especially if you're doing psychological horror. This stands out because like it's not there's horrific elements, I guess, and some of it and maybe like the grossness of certain scenes, but like it's an emotions movie. It's about like feeling what these kids felt.
It's a coming of
So-
age story.
it really does captures that loss of innocence and I don't know, because Stephen King does have kids in a lot of his books, like between it, Dreamcatcher, this one, he's riddled throughout, but I don't know, just the portrayal of this this little snapshot of these kids' lives, I don't know, really sticks with you.
Yeah.
Another
Stephen
big
King.
thing about this one that I think that sticks out is because of like how famous so many people in this movie went on to become.
That's true.
Especially for kids. Yeah,
Yeah,
kids.
exactly.
They usually don't
I was gonna.
pan out.
I mean, we'll save it for the full conversation, but I was gonna peg you, Brandon, about the kid acting because I know how you feel about
It's
kid
always
actors.
I always hold it against the movie. No. This movie's got good kid acting, man.
Absolutely.
Some of the best.
Some of the
Especially
best.
what they're asking for them to do, for sure. Never took me out of it. If anything, I appreciate it as I got older. But Dave, I know we have another Stephen King movie adaptation coming up.
Coming up
pretty soon,
actually.
right?
Yep. Before we get to that, we are watching True Grit next week for everybody that wants to play along at home. Going into the Western scene for a little bit.
The 2013 remake, by the way.
Is it? Okay.
It's the one I saw, and I thought it was
something I did not know.
and good kid acting.
Going into this one blind. So after that, Summer of Arnold continues with the Stephen King adaptation of Running Man, which I don't know stands out for me as one of a great Arnold movie, a great 80s movie. And then after that, we're getting into Reservoir Dogs to round out the month. Going over to Tarantino land to get Eric into that one because
fill my Tarantino hole and Arnold holes.
Yep.
I'm excited.
Yeah,
that's one of the few Tarantino movies I haven't seen, which is crazy because it's like one of the
only ones I like.
Renowned, yeah. So I'm excited for that one for sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that was calendar. Thanks, and we're good with social. Yeah.
Oh, just shout out to the Discord, nomadsofantasy.com/Discord if you want to hop in there, chat with us. We're all, we always take in suggestions for the show, questions for upcoming episodes. So hop in there, nomadsofantasy.com/Discord.
Boom.
Well, thanks for plugging that. All right. Now, all right. Before I don't know, let's make a little fire. I was gonna think of like how I could like punch you twice because you flinched, but
made you flinch.
Yeah, you flinched. Yeah, let's see how much money we have. I don't know. Maybe we can get some snacks between the acts, and when we come back, we'll dig into Stand By Me.
Right after this.
Right after this.
You got long timer.
All right, we are back to talking Stand By Me, a Rob Reiner flick. Now, I try to remember directors' names. Like, I knew Steven Spielberg. I knew Stephen King wrote this. I think it's called The Body. I think that's the name of the book.
Novella.
And I don't know if yeah. But Rob Reiner, I'm like, I know the name. What did he do? And I looked him up. I'm like, oh, that guy. Okay. And then, oh my God. So I looked at his history. I never knew he was like the stepson in, or the son-in-law in Archie Bunker's show or whatever, that TV show.
All in the Family. Is that the one?
All in the Family.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he has hair and he's younger, so I never knew that was the same guy. But he started his first movie, which he wrote and directed, I think, and acted in, which was Spinal Tap. I think he wrote it, but he directed Spinal Tap. I'm like, no way, this is the same guy. Stand By Me is a good movie, and so Spinal Tap. And then I looked at and I saw Princess Bride.
Yeah.
A Few Good Men. And I was like, holy shit! Why don't we talk about this director more? Like, it's like the same guy that did what was it? Contact and Forrest Gump and
Zemeckis talking about?
Yeah.
Robert Zemeckis? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, some of these guys have great movies.
Zemeckis is overshadowed by his peers. Like, he was friends with Spielberg.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was a big thing.
And it tends to be like, if you're friends with Spielberg, everyone's talking about Spielberg.
Yep.
Okay.
Tough.
All right. But this guy, Rob Reiner, he did a great job. He has some legit movies, but I don't know if people know his name as well as others.
I haven't seen a lot of his newer stuff from like the 2000s on, but from like the 80s and 90s, like everything in there is kind of classic, which is kind of interesting. Doesn't look like he's done anything. Family Squares looks like that was the last one, or something in 2017, but
Okay.
that's about it.
And then on the other side, Steven Spielberg, who wrote this, right? We're all familiar with his work, but I don't know if anybody actually read this actual source material. Has anybody read?
I have, in
No,
fact, read
I
The
have not.
Body.
Oh yeah,
You have.
Nice.
I'm a huge Stephen King fan. Initially, I saw The Running Man. I wanted to come talk about that, but
Oh,
since
wow.
I have a podcast where I talk about science fiction movies, I figured I'd save it for that one.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
But
So you read the book?
It's a novella, and usually it's packaged in a collection. You'll have The Body, and then like 3 or 4 other short stories with it.
Mhm.
I can't remember which collection I read it in, but I have in fact read it, and it's very good.
Okay.
It's one of King's more emotional works, is why I like it.
Okay. What's so like?
It's not a whole lot different, frankly.
Oh, really? So that's probably why he thinks this is like the
Right.
best
Yeah.
Pretty
adaptation.
faithful
Like, that's what I
adaptation.
made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
There's no supernatural stuff for people to get bogged down in how do you portray. It's a simple story about a bunch of kids and kind of dealing with the horror of the bully next door, honestly.
Right.
From what I've seen, I've found that authors like when you stick very closely to the original material when you're adapting their work. As we heard last week when we were talking about V for Vendetta, the author of that comic did not like the adaptation.
Oh.
And I feel like
He doesn't.
more often than not, the author is not a fan of the adapted work.
In fairness, he doesn't like anything. He's a very cantankerous personality.
It sounded. That's kind of what we were debating.
That's
on.
what we got
It's
from the
Miller.
quote, yeah.
It's Miller, right?
Yes.
There's also the guy that did like The Dark Knight and Watchmen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Okay.
he's a particularly pessimistic man to begin with. Obviously, you could tell from what he writes about.
So, but this is a novella, you said?
Yeah.
Which is those are shorter. So I think it probably was easy to do a pretty good, screenplay
And to your
Get
point,
that-
Nikki, it's a pretty straightforward story, so it doesn't get
Yeah.
kind of garbled with some of the stuff left to interpretation. It's kind of just like, this is a story, and we're just gonna tell it in movie form.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but the good news is, not only does the author like this movie, but a lot of people like this movie. I think we all like this one, right? I'm kind of making a statement for all of us here, but
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
And
kind of why I wanted to. Eric, had you
go to
seen
Rotten
it before?
Tomatoes and was like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah, I've seen it.
Critics and the people like it.
I mean, it's kind of I feel like it's ingratiated itself into pop culture a bit, which is how I was sort of introduced to it, before I actually saw it, which I probably saw it first in college, so maybe like I don't know, 6 or 20, when was I in college? 2013-ish, so 10 years ago, let's say. First time I saw it. But I've always heard like, you want to see a dead body, that's like such a iconic
You hear that a lot?
phrase. Not said to me personally, but no, just in like pop culture, you hear that phrase a lot. So it's like, I knew what it was from. Then when I finally watched it, I'm like, okay, this is a good movie here. And I'm glad that I hadn't seen it, for a while. Seen it recent enough to remember the main beats of the story, but watching it again, I had my, podcast eye on, a more critical lens looking at it this time I was watching. So I noticed a lot more nuances in like the story itself and like the performances by the kid actors, which, like you said, I mean, we said it at the top of the show, but this is probably some of the best kid acting I've ever seen in a movie. Just the emotion that they convey and that they brought was phenomenal.
Well, and I think especially like you don't expect that out of Corey Feldman. Corey Feldman is not the world's greatest actor. Like he's a kid actor and he's well known, but not for the acting that he does. And man, like some of those motions where he's talking about his father and like you really feel for the kid. Like he seems like that disgruntled shithead that he would have had in high school that like just couldn't quite get things together. And you can see how he's gonna become that guy in that pain.
That's one thing I love about this movie, and it is very emotional because it's like you can see how these kids kind of fit into stereotypes of other kids that you knew when you grew up, and I don't know which one of us fits into which kid in this movie, but
I was the fat kid.
Just the
that's me.
Awkward one, but like they don't tell a lot of stories like this that have like that brutal honesty of like kids growing up and like that. I said loss of innocence before, but it's like that last end of summer before you go on to like the new school and kind of all your shit changes and you got to start like looking at life through a different lens, and like this is the perfect encapsulation of like that one moment in time that you get before. Where are they going to, like junior high? What is that? Like 6th, 8th grade?
It's the transition between
Or 12, so
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. But
something like that.
I don't know. No, go ahead.
Well, it's just one of the things you mentioned that this movie, because it's so popular, and one of the reasons, certainly when this movie came out and thereafter, is Rivers Phoenix right there was supposed to be like the next big thing. Like, obviously killed this movie, and he had a few things after this, but he died very, very young, and so a lot of this movie was his breakout role and kind of showed, oh, what's this guy going to be? And then it gets cut off and he never gets to be what he's going to be. And so because of its connection to him, it was always going to have some type of, cachet about it.
Yeah, it's
kind of crazy. I did like, what year did he die in here? Let me check it. 1993.
Yeah, he was like 23 years old when he died.
13, yeah, when it happened. And I like still remember hearing the news about it, but not knowing like, exactly what was going on with it. But like it's kind of like, I don't know.
I'd say the only other actor I know who's passed away that young was Brandon Lee.
Bruce
Lee's son. I think he was 23 when he went too.
Yeah.
Which
so was that like a year later in '94? I feel like
that's crazy.
I think so. On The Crow, and the filming of The Crow, yeah.
I think one of the main reasons this movie works, at least for me, is like, I mean, like you were saying, Dave, they do have the typical archetypes for each of the kids, but it's very relatable. You know, you think
extremely.
you just think back to when you were this age, when you were hanging out with your group of friends, doing whatever you were doing. Like it's a different time. Like, and all of these kids, like, you know that they're, you know, kind of the backstory of their lives. They're all sort of outcasts. Their parents are more or less, you know, not really paying attention to them, so they're just kind of out doing whatever they want to do, hanging out with each other. And it's like, you know, they're kind of the only family that they have at this point. You know, they're so close that they treat each other as family, you know, and when their home lives, all of their home lives are kind of shitty, you know. So it's like, it's very relatable story.
Yeah.
Well, the outcast thing is endlessly relatable because it doesn't matter who you are in school. Everyone at some point feels like the odd man out, the weird person. There's no feeling more universal than just being, you know, the outsider.
Especially at that age. Like, it's an awkward age right before, like, as you're hitting puberty, you know, things are changing in your life, you know, physically, mentally, you know, emotionally. So it's a very strange time at that age.
Well, you see that with the older kids too, because, you know, Kiefer and his crew, like, they're rolling around and they're worried about like carving tattoos into their arms with razor blades, and they're only like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old, and these kids, and like,
probably
these
high
kids are going to go from this
17.
to that in like, you know, a handful of years. And like, you can see the same like group mechanics in that group. Kind of, you can see the shy kid, and you can see like the ones that don't want to tell them. You see the hard ass alpha. Like, it's weird to think of the transition from one to the next.
I like that you're talking about this, though, because it's like you're talking about how, yes, we've seen these archetypes before, right? And we're trying to say that's who they are. And I don't think I've ever really noticed this, but just, yeah, when you watch it for a show, you're like, how am I going to have a discussion about this movie? What do we got to pay attention to? And I was looking at one of the themes, I guess, which is you still are, like, they're young, and it's all about you have your future to really make, like, to tell the world what you really are, right? And that's like to me, that's what the message is. It's about like life and death, and like, who are you? So like the death of Denny, that's affecting Will Wheaton's character,
Gordy.
Gordy.
What's his name? Gordy.
Yeah, thank you. You know, like, Gordy is saying like there's like his best friend's like, yo, you are a great writer. We see what's special in you here. But everybody else is just seeing the young kid of Denny, and they're like, Denny was going to be this great football player, and what are you doing? And it's just like, who are you? Same thing with all the other kids, like, where Chris is coming from a rough family, and his older brother's a delinquent. Sounds like his family's just seen as like these like delinquents. So he's like, yeah, I might even be a delinquent, but I should be a delinquent because of what I've done, not because of what you think I should be. And it's everybody's like trying to figure out what is my legacy. And I think that was the message of saying, like, what are you going to do with your life? Because some people die young. You still have your whole life to do something. And if they say you're this and you're not, then show them that you're not. And look at Chris. He goes on to become like a lawyer, you know, trying to make a better world. So I don't know. That's something I noticed with this movie after watching it so many times. I'm like, yeah, you know, it's I don't know. It's kind of sad. It's very depressing.
Oh, it's not a feel good movie for sure.
No.
Yeah, like at the end of the movie, I felt like, I kind of yearned to be 12 again. Actually,
it does give you that. It's very nostalgic, and that's one thing I was going to say before we started the whole conversation. Is that, like, I don't know if the younger kids that grew up with cell phones and computers and internet are going to like relate as much to this movie. It may end up being, you know, that us older people that, you know, had dial-up modems and you know, time in the 80s with no cell phones.
2 days.
Yeah, and the parents don't even care. Yeah,
he's 12 years old, like smoking cigarettes, walking around with a pistol, just like, what is going on? If I find out my kids are doing that, we're leaving.
That sounds like a lot like we were saying before. Like, I didn't live in the country, but like, you know, I may have taken my dad's pistol out and shot it out a window at a tree or something like that. Like, it's stupid shit that kids do.
It's just dumb shit. Yeah,
like, they're fucking dumb.
It's part of growing up, you know.
It really is.
And like
I
you
guess as a
said,
resident
finding out who
country
you are.
boy. As the resident country boy, I'll say, yeah, this is the kind of stuff country kids did. Just, hey, let's follow the train tracks and go camp in the woods.
Like, hey, what else are we gonna what else are we gonna do for fun? Let's fucking go explore, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
But
sad.
the
So
movie, it's a good story. It's well directed and it's well acted. All those kids showed up. I mean, Phoenix was phenomenal. Like, I remember thinking, like, wow, what a cool friend he would be if I was like a kid, like when I was a kid. But like seeing and I was an adult, like, man, I'm back. Like, man, if you had him in your life though, like that's like the best kid. He's put his arm around you,
dude. He's got your back. He's supportive. He's
like, yeah.
Like, you
I
know,
was like, man, that is like
you know,
the best friend ever.
Like having that one friend that would literally, I mean, at that age, they would have literally done anything like for each other to protect each other, you know, like even at the end, like when fucking what's Kiefer Sutherland's character, Ace, comes up and they're trying to take the body, you know, Gordy just fucking whips out the gun, no questions asked, stone cold, like, I will shoot you if you try to take this body. Like, he's protecting his friends. He's at that point, he's protecting more than just his friends. He's protecting like I don't know like the legacy and like the idea of innocence. Cause like he says, like, you know, at first they want to be the heroes, find this Ray Brower kid, you know, they'll be famous, get their names in the paper. And that's what the older kids were thinking too. But at the end, Gordy's like, no, we have to leave him here. You know, we can't be the ones to take credit for this. You know, it just has to be, you know, it puts everything in perspective for him. I think Gordy has the most like revolutionary moment at the end there.
They stole his fucking hat. Like,
I know, that's
dude,
that was shitty.
Like, that's pretty fucked up. Like, you can't.
Oh, he should have been like,
right?
Leave the hat, you know.
Like,
oh.
And they were saying, like, in the behind the scenes documentary, that Gordy never gets the hat back because Ace threw it away immediately after stealing it, which makes
that's a dick move.
Like, even bigger of a dick move. Like, oh man.
But I think
bullies do that.
I think with his character, had he done anything like that and leave the hat, it would have ruined the honesty of that moment. Because you're watching him and he's got a gun in his hand and he's pointed, and he's never been more scared in his life than at that moment. Like, because at 12, like you have a real dangerous life situation. You're suddenly tossed in the middle of it. And you don't know what you're doing. Is this the right thing to do? Like, am I gonna die tomorrow? Like, is he coming for my family? You don't know. You're not gonna have like just you know you're not Stallone. In
not gonna be Dirty Harry,
right?
Yeah, you're not Dirty Harry. You're a scared little boy.
Yeah,
who's just standing up for himself the only way you have there.
It did have that moment. Did have one of those movie tropes though, where it's like the person you're aiming the gun at doesn't think you have the guts to do it, and then instead of saying anything back, you cock the gun.
Yeah.
Oh,
Now it's serious. You were aiming it at me, but once you cocked it,
like Ace said dare, and then Gordy said fucking double dare, and like it's just one up in it. That's the escalation.
It's a game of chicken,
having a gun.
You know, who's gonna crack first?
Ace doesn't back down. He's crazy. Yeah. He drove at that truck without moving his car.
But I think like that scene would have less of an impact. You have to have the hat stealing scene before they leave, because I mean it also sets up Kiefer as being like the bully who can kind of like bully their group's leader essentially. But then they have the callback to it later in the movie where they're the ones that provide that climactic scene essentially.
Yeah.
It's cool. I don't know. Yeah. Well, I mean, Stephen King writes good books, so it's not really terribly surprising that, it's a good... Like, I like a lot of Stephen King stuff as well.
He writes good books. He writes really bad books, too.
Yeah. Some of them, I try only to read the good ones. I want to get this novella, though, now and kind of give it a...
Oh, this was one on the good side. I'm just always taken back to the Family Guy bit, where it's like...
Yes.
Oh, and a lamp monster attacks New England town.
I know exactly what you're talking
anymore.
About. I love that one.
Everything's always in New England, no matter what. I love the Dark Tower series, but like
that's what got me.
Yeah, Dreamcatchers were decent, but we'll see.
Seen the Langoliers adaptation? That's a classic.
Is that in the the old one from the 90s?
Yeah,
Balaki
the made for TV movie.
Yeah. It's I watched that like so many times as a kid. Like
Really?
we just had that on VHS and we would just pop it on.
Oh shit!
And it's so bad that we would just laugh at it.
It's not good, but it's entertaining.
It's fun to watch though.
Like the '90s, The Stand movie was like a 4-night thing.
It was
I
a
think
big
kind of
deal
like
when
the
it
same
came out.
thing.
I remember that one.
Once
Yeah.
again, for a made-for-TV movie, look at the cast that you have in The Stand.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
ridiculous. Also,
Yeah.
I don't even remember. It's been a long time.
but that's back when like anything Stephen King did, like they were gonna get an A-list cast. I mean, It. Look what you get for It for a cast. Like it's
Tim
just
Curry,
people,
come on.
and people signing up to work
Yeah.
on those movies back then.
Oh, Gary Sinise was in it. Yeah, there's some good guys.
Well,
some good
Stephen
ones in it.
King had success early on though because of Carrie. Like he wrote the book next year, big movie, and it was a big hit. And they were like, "Hey, the horror guy like makes really good stories that are good for movies," and they just like were crushing them. And he said, "I could write other stuff," and they're like, "No, we don't care. We
Right.
just want you to write this." So he had to come up with like his ghost name or whatever, and he came up with whatever so he could write Green Mile. Staying by Me.
Richard Bachman.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bachman, I actually like a lot more of his stuff than I did King, frankly.
I've heard that. I think my brother says the same or something like that. Because you got Shawshank Redemption in there, right?
Desperation, I think, was Bachman, and that's a really good story.
Okay. But yeah, Dave, you're talking about like the kids, right? And you were saying, I think it was you, like before we were recording, I was like, man, I tried watching some of this with my little kids.
Oh,
Yeah.
And a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, which I'm not overprotective, but like there's some words in here and I'm like, you'll get in trouble if you say some of these words, man. And so my 4-year-old is just like kept trying to watch it, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to pause this because they just found the body.
It's
And he
gonna be
said-
like a core memory
He
for
go-
him later in
He
life.
kept saying, what about the dead kid? The dead kid's body. I'm like, don't ignore that. Ignore that part.
You're trying to scar your kids for life.
Are you coming down here talking about the movie, little guy?
I want to hear his thoughts on the movie.
Yeah, let's give us a quick review, kid.
But yeah, but yeah, that's what kids talk like. That's what they.
It evokes that, because you want to be cool. You want to sound cool when you're that age, so you're using all the swear words, calling your friends shit bags and dick faces and whatever else. Just,
Any degrading thing you can come up with somebody, your buddy's mom.
about your, yeah,
It's
exactly.
all mom.
So
like
true.
a lot of that kind of humor. Forget they're talking about somebody's tits at some point. In the Mickey Mouse Club. That was one of my favorite, like buddy, like you talk about chicks conversation. It's just.
I mean, that's
a
the
great
kind of stuff.
encapsulation of that time.
It's the kind of stuff you talked about when you're 12 years old, and the kinds of things that you said, because it's like, that's just what you did.
And I feel it's pretty groundbreaking at the time because you never really got to see, like, certainly that age of kid be a real kid. You're always either background and have like no agency. You're just kind of like window dressing, or you act like a kid and I'm very naive, and everybody knows kids aren't that naive. You just kind of put the act on for your parents, certainly at that age, because that's what's expected of you, I guess.
Right. Especially at that time too, like in the, what is this, 1959?
Yeah.
Kids didn't talk like that in front of their parents, or they would get beat. Like literally they would get a whooping.
Oh yeah.
So they got all of that stuff out when they were hanging out with their buddies. They're like, we can't say this stuff at home, but it's like a safe space, that they created where they can just be themselves.
All that
Yeah.
perfectly. Like if you're looking for a movie, it's like, yeah, I used to like that movie. If you really want a movie that captures what it was like being a kid in the 80s, especially a foul-mouthed boy, like
Yeah.
The movie was set in
the movie.
50s.
Yeah, 59.
59, I think.
59 something. And that's, I don't know, one of the things we've been gushing about this a lot, but the thing that really kind of, I don't know, like lets it sink in is the fact that the whole thing is kind of a flashback.
Mhm.
And Gordy's essentially writing, like, it starts the movie with old Gordy in a truck, and he's looking at the newspaper of, was it Chris
Mm-hmm.
that got stabbed in a restaurant? Spoiler warning. But then it kind of like digs into the story, and you get some of the flashback, and like I don't think that like at the time the kids don't know like what a core memory they're kind of creating for themselves, but like when you're an adult and looking back on things, you kind of have the experience of life that kind of lets you know what in your past kind of made those core memories for
How
you.
often do you know when you're making a core memory?
Right,
in your
exactly.
life?
Like,
It's always when you look back, because
I had one quote about this movie that I couldn't stop thinking of, and it's from The Office, from Andy Bernard, and I wrote it down right here. It says, "I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you've actually left them."
True.
And like that, I think is like a
very
great
true.
synopsis of, just life in
At
general.
that
but
age,
this movie,
it's really hard. I think you
you
start to. I think in high school, it's ending, like an era. I think in college, I think right before you have your first kid. I think when you have these big milestones that are coming up, you can see them. But when you're a kid, like you don't know that this might be the last of those summers that you've been having for the last 5 years or something like that.
I think
Or
that's
that crew of
why
kids.
that's why Gordy as an adult chose to write this story, in the movie, because this was like a life-changing moment, in his life. It's something that shaped him for the rest of his life forever, because especially I think his friendship with Chris more than anything is kind of what shaped him throughout this whole experience, because they sort of influenced each other and raised each other up, because Chris thought he was nothing. He thought he was a delinquent. He thought he wasn't ever meant to do anything good in life. Gordy thought he was always just gonna be like, second fiddle after Denny died. His dad, he thinks his dad hates him. He doesn't think he could do anything in life. They sort of raise each other up, and without each other, I don't know where they would have ended up.
Well, so Brandon mentioned like this movie. One of the main themes seems to be like, who are you going to be when you grow up and making that choice? And this movie is very definitively when he pulls that gun on Ace, like he's made a choice and he decides the kind of person that he's going to be. He's not going to be someone who's searching for fame. He's going to be the guy who does the right thing, even when it's hard, even when it's scary.
Yep.
And like to me, that's his "I just became a man" moment. He doesn't know that going into it, but like right there, that's when that happens.
That's a very
It's
good
funny
point.
because they're just constantly yapping and joking and singing and picking at each other, and little by little they fall apart and they become like this man that they are to be or something like that, and they become quiet, to the point where like none of them can even talk, And it's there's so many things. I think that's why this movie works. It's just the first time you watch it, you just experience the story, and then the second time you watch it, you pick up some of the story that you missed, and then you start appreciating all the like nuances, all the things that we've been talking about, and it's just like this is why this movie is regarded as one of the greats, I guess.
Yeah.
Another thing I think is awesome about this, and you kind of hit on it a little bit, Dave, is that this movie it takes place in the 1950s, and between the four of us, we all agree that there is definitely very much some elements that we can all that feel honest to our childhood, but I'm a millennial, born in '84, and the world has changed a ton. Like history moved along, and in our generation, just decided to start sprinting as fast as it could towards something. I don't know what, but I do wonder. Time was very, very similar for my grandparents, for my dad, and for me up until a certain point.
Yeah.
My kid does not have anything resembling the childhood that me, my dad, or my grandfather had in any way.
No way. Yeah.
And
I
it's
think about it all the
very
time
it's
as a parent.
very interesting to see that like contextually in this movie, because I can talk to my dad and my grandfather about this and we can all come to like some certain consensus. I don't know that the next generation would be able to come to any consensus with us because their experience is just so vastly different.
Yeah,
Those
it's
damn
a very
cell
good
phones.
point.
Damn cell phones ruined everything.
But it's good because movies like this make you think about this other era, and it's like it's hard to recognize it at that moment. Like there's this thing I have where I have this little spot in my brain, and it's full of sounds, visuals, and smells. And it's my childhood of going to the arcade at where we used to go to camp. It was like a campground, and they had an arcade. It's Rainbow Lake, Dave.
Sure. Oh yeah. Nice.
But in the 80s, there was an era where every summer new games would replace the old games. It was like a legit arcade experience. But I can smell it. I can hear it. I can remember the excitement I got when I came in. They got Mortal Kombat 2. I'm good at that one. Getting lined up with the quarter up. And there's a whole generation of kids who will never know what that feels like. That little pocket, that little memory that I have of sight, smell, and sounds. And everybody's going to have them. It could be AOL Chat Messenger. It could be bowling. It could be whatever it is. These kids had that. You know, they went on the train tracks. They had leeches. They had all these little things that happened, this memory, but you don't know at that time if you're creating that memory.
Oh.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because it literally just jogged a memory I haven't thought about in years, Luce. In my own head, thinking about Darien Lake, which was like an amusement park slash
of course.
campground in
We all
upstate
know
New
about
York.
Darien Lake.
We know Darien Lake.
Well,
Yeah.
and I'm imagining
That's a Six Flag resort.
I'm immediately back in like the one arcade playing the X-Men arcade game.
Yeah. And you just hear Colossus. You just hear Colossus in your brain's ear going over and over again.
I haven't thought about it in years, and suddenly you're talking about it. I'm right back there.
That's crazy. Darien Lake's like just a little hop, skip, and a jump down the road from us. So
30 minutes away.
That's kind of crazy that there's a core memory there because I could probably. I think I know exactly what arcade you're talking about, over by the Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
Yep.
but there's a beautiful. And I don't know if it's in the book or what, but in the movie, the one kid meets a deer, and they've been sharing and experiencing this whole trip with each other. But he's like, I'm not gonna tell him about the deer. Like that's my memory with the deer, And it's like this whole conversation is just making me think about moments that we have, and like. You know how you hear like that thing where people say, eventually something's going to be the last time you do it. The last time you get a Frosty at Wendy's. There's a last time you're going to do that. There's a last time you're going to drive this vehicle. There's a last time you're going to see that person or talk, whatever. It's just like stopping and just slowing down. Like you said, like how like we're racing for what? Like, why don't we slow down a little bit? Just because we can go fast doesn't mean that we should go fast. Ian Malcolm's always in my head. I love that quote. But like, it's just we got to slow down. And
is that
like,
Jurassic Park, or is this? Are you parlaying Dr. Ian Malcolm right there? I don't remember.
That's what he said. I mean,
okay. Right,
I agree, and I think everything that we just because you can doesn't mean you should.
I gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
I don't know. That's.
I was gonna say to Nikki's point, the kids nowadays might not have the same exact experience that these kids had, or that even we had as children. But I think this movie is still timeless because it evokes that feeling of being a kid, even if you're not doing the same exact thing these kids were doing in the movie. It's that feeling of just being that age, being with your friends, no matter what you're doing. You don't have to be going on an adventure to find a dead body. You could just be hanging out in, your friend's basement playing video games, which is what I did a lot as a kid. It's just that feeling of bonding with your friends. Because I don't think they even say it in this movie. Like, at that age, at that time in their lives, they didn't have a friend. Gordy said he'd never had a friend as good as Chris at that time, at that moment, ever again in his life. There's something special about that. It's that bond.
Amazing friend on that trip.
Yeah. So, it's just that it's a story about a bond between friends, and like you can never replace that.
That's a really interesting thing to take note of, because it's definitely not how I teach my daughter. But the idea that like, and I found this to be in my life, honest, that most of your friends are very relational, and that you know, my college friends are the people I hung out with college. Very few people that I hung out with college do I still hang out with, mostly because I don't live in the same geographic area. But it's like,
Yep.
once you're kind of out of sight, you're out of mind. And,
Mhm.
you know, other than like those kids that you met like, when you're kids, do you really kind of form bonds like that? I've kind of actively taught my daughter to not function that way. I've taught her about understanding, you know, the economy of relationships and dealing with people and how to, you know, you invest in the investments that you get a return on. If people don't return on
Yeah.
your investment of friendship, you know, for me, it's like you're their family or you're not family. I will invest in you and call you family if you give me a good return on my investment. And in turn, I expect that I'll do the same to you. You know, you put in, you get something back. And you know, when you're kids, that's real easy.
Mm-hmm.
When you're adults, that gets much harder to do because everyone's so wrapped up in their own business that it very easily becomes, you know, like, well, I'll get to them later, you know, get back to them later. But later never comes because you're so enthralled with what you're doing.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh,
Like
man.
even
Oh man, this movie's making me feel old now.
I know.
You know, if people came to this episode thinking that we would just be talking about the movie and all this stuff, like
No.
we
Well,
kinda
that's the
did, but
beauty
we're
of
kinda
this
talking
movie.
about
You know,
what
it makes you
what
think
makes
about your own life and your own experiences and how your experiences has shaped you into the person that you are and your relationships that you have with other people. So this
Yeah.
movie makes you think for sure.
Yeah, it does.
You can
Well,
reflect on your own life.
It's a good thing.
Good. I like that.
King was great at that. Like a lot of people don't understand. Do any of you know what Carrie is actually about?
I don't know if I've actually
Puberty?
I've only seen
Carrie.
the
I'll have-
movie,
Maybe.
but like a long time ago.
The whole point in Carrie, and this is partly because he worked with his wife on the book, it's about a girl having her period for
Yeah.
the first time and how
Yep.
terrifying that is. It just
Okay.
happens to be that this girl, when she has her period, also has like psycho powers that happen too. But the whole
Okay.
core of that story and why it works and why it's as good as it is because it's about the terror and the emotions of being terrified because you're changing and you know you're afraid the world's going to look at you like a freak. And
Oh.
you know, the more you give into it, the worse that becomes. Like I said, obviously with the horrific elements added onto it, but when he's really attacking a true human emotion, God, he can do some of the best writing in the world. But he's also known to be the monster guy, you know, the scary
Right.
movie guy, and so a lot of people kind of gloss over the core to the actual, like, the heart of what his stories can be about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is,
Wow.
I
This is
mean,
deep.
everybody's,
I love it.
everybody's
I know.
got, like,
I
deep
wasn't expecting.
conversations. I love
I
this.
wasn't expecting this conversation to go so
Did
deep,
you
but I
guys-
like it.
Did you guys have wow? There's like a ton of like very memorable scenes in this movie. You got like, you know, chopper sick balls. You got the swamp. You got the
Well,
the
I don't
crescendo
know,
at the
man.
end.
I mean, I'm a
Like, you
sucker for
guys-
the pie eating contest. I
Yeah,
can't.
I was gonna say,
I love that scene. It's
lard
just out of
ass.
nowhere. It just adds a bunch of stupid humor to it, and
It's like how
I know.
kids tell stories, though. Like,
yeah, I
like
love
only a
it.
kid can
I
come
love
up with
it.
this story.
Well, to me, that like is a specific callback to King's love of EC comics. And you guys ever watch like the Tales from the Crypt TV
Yes.
show? Or
Yeah.
Yes.
well, Tales from the Crypt was originally an EC comic that King is notably a huge fan of. That's like what gave him his dark horror side, and that like could have been pulled directly from the pages of an old EC comic strip. It was,
Okay.
That's great.
you know,
Oh, that was great.
it's a parable in its own right, but it's got that twist ending that, like, you know, you're not expecting seeing, and that's how every single one of them played out back in the day.
Okay.
Yeah, Lardass went home and he just felt good about puking on everybody or setting this whole puke battle.
Just
Yeah, you know.
marveled in his
What a memory he created for everybody there too. We're gonna talk about
exactly.
creating
Yeah.
memories in this.
I'm a sucker for like the emotional moments in this movie, like specifically the one between Gordy and Chris when they're like, you know, Chris is standing guard and Gordy gets up and starts talking to him, and
Oh yeah.
Chris breaks down, you know, in tears, saying that he's no good, that he won't ever be anything, and Gordy's comforting him, like, and there I got some insight, you know, before I was doing a little reading before the podcast, and like they did that scene. They did a first take of that scene, and Rob Reiner basically told River Phoenix, like, "Oh, you could do better than that. Think of a time in your life when an adult has really let you down, and just channel that emotion." So he did the another take again, and like a child actor evoking that kind of emotion and actually being able to like have like tears in a scene like that is really impressive to me.
It is pretty heart-wrenching. Like I don't know, like, cause it's not a happy, like we might have said it before, it's not a happy movie, but it's like realistic. Like families are fucked up. Like teachers, adults that you're supposed to trust are fucked up. Like,
Yeah.
it's that losing the innocence and finding out that real life is like, shit gets real.
Like all of them have shitty parents.
Yeah.
All these kids. I mean, we don't really know about like what's his face, Jerry
Vern.
O'Connell's. Yeah, Vern. Like we don't know about his parents. They're probably fine, but the rest of them have fucked up parents. Like the death of Denny really messed up. I mean, yeah, it's been 5 months since the death of their kid. Like they're gonna be fucked up for a long time. So like, I get it, but like, they still have another kid that's alive, and that's the thing that like they're not getting it. But you still have a kid here that's alive. He's right
in
there.
front of you. Yeah,
and he's
exactly.
Like just waiting for some love, and his parents just won't give it to him. And that's where like Chris is like, they don't see what I see. Like, they don't know you. They don't see you. It sucks, but that's the reality of it.
And I think there's something even in that, we're watching essentially the next generation of broken people raised by broken people.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
we don't like,
Yep.
we could shit on, Gordy's parents for not loving him, it seems like, as much as Teddy, but the grief of losing a child, like I frankly can't even imagine going through that, and like how do you deal with that? And the thing is yeah, you're from the context of Gordy, you're a shitty parent, but like you got dealt a pretty raw hand, and who's the one that's going to point the finger and say you just need to buckle up and get over this, because to me that seems life destroying in and of itself. And
Yeah.
It's just this Gordy's bad hand that he got dealt, his poor situation that his parents got dealt. And that's Teddy's dad. Teddy's dad didn't ask to be the way he is. It's what he lived through that made him who he is.
Yep.
It's just people that were broken by life, and their kids trying to not be as broken as they are.
Yeah, which is not. I mean, because the fact that it's a flashback, you get to see at the very end as he's finishing the memoir, you get to see him play with his kid, and he is kind of breaking the cycle and not being. I mean, his dad did, have a kid die. I don't know if they would be the same way, but like he is, like relishing being a father and like playing with his kids.
He's been making those kids wait.
Wait for an hour to go to our beach house.
Yeah, I know. They're like loaded.
Are any of you guys Everclear fans?
Yeah,
Everclear from the 90s.
From the 90s. Yeah.
Art
Spark Dollar
says,
Sign?
that's actually my favorite song by them.
That's great.
It may have anything to do with why I married a black woman, but
No.
But I was going to point out specifically, there's a line in Father of Mine, and it's specifically where he's gone through the song, and he's like, and I swear I'm never going to let my kids know the pain that I've known.
That's a sad thing to write.
That was a pop song.
Yeah.
Me and my wife talked about it this weekend. It's why it's on top of my brain. It's like, man, he killed that line, and that's a horrible thing to think. Man, this song is catchy.
That is,
90s was good at writing some fucked up, sad songs, but like hidden under like such like Brick. I think I heard Brick by Ben Folds 5 like 100 times, and then I was in the car and I'm like listening to the lyrics for the first time. I'm like, wait a minute, is this song about abortion? Holy fuck, this is really sad, man.
Or what's it, Third Eye Blind, where he's talking about doing crystal meth?
Right. Yes, dude.
Jumper's
about like suicide, and it's just like
Today by the Pumpkins is about
but
killing
you're like
yourself.
dancing when you say these lyrics. Yeah, Pumped Up Kicks came out like a few years ago. That's a fucked up song.
Until you actually sit and listen to them, it's like, shit, everybody's fucked up.
Hey, if you go back in the 50s though, like you'll hear some songs where the guy's like hitting on like a young girl, and I'm like, what's going on with these lyrics? She's only 16. I'm like, oh yeah, when she's 16. Why are you writing a song about it, guys?
Well, they were still singing this in the 80s, I promise you.
I know.
She's only 17. So,
Skip Winger.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I don't know. A lot of these songs are like that. But anywho,
But you don't get those 50 songs like Lollipop. Like that was
I
like
like
just a song that
Lollipop.
sticks in your head, but it's
Yeah.
about like it's just got a
Wait.
dumb little hook to it, and it's like that 50s little.
What's that song about?
It's about murdering. I suppose suicide. Really, I don't know.
Oh, I think you were saying like Lollipop's like sex or something like that.
No.
I thought it was about lollipops. I thought it was just.
Yeah,
like
kind of probably.
I don't
Did
know.
you?
I'm
We're
actually looking-
talking about the parents. Did you guys notice Gordy's mom? Did anybody catch her face?
She looked familiar.
No.
Also, the mom from Back to the Future when they go back in time.
Oh,
Also, the mom from Gremlins.
Interesting.
Yes,
Big,
yes, that's where I reckon her. 'Cause she's
yeah.
the one that like kills the thing and puts it in the microwave, and the other one in the blender. She's a badass.
good,
Yeah,
good
so
80s
she's-
mom, I guess.
She's got that like 80s cookie bush
Poof.
kind of hair, like that little
Yeah,
bouffant. I don't know what you want to call it, but yeah, she looks very mommy.
Very mommy.
I'm curious because we've talked a lot about basically every character in this movie, and I don't think that his performance was any less. But you know, Jerry O'Connell's portrayal of Vern,
Mhm.
like none of him sticks out in the movie as far as like his story, but I think that everybody has that kind of nondescript friend in their world, certainly from their own perspective. It's just the guy who's
Yeah.
there, and maybe he's important, he's part of the group.
He's fun to hang
But,
out
like-
with, but you don't really have those deep connection with him. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the way he leaves. They like didn't happen. Hey, he got married. Yeah,
It was the same.
I
Yeah,
was gonna say,
him
like,
and
he gets
Teddy.
married.
Parts of forklift.
Married
Right.
as a kid and gets like a blue collar job, and that's like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
kind of
he's
like
looking
the
for
most
pennies.
The guy lost touch with him. Yeah.
blah like.
But we don't know anything about his parents. He
middle
doesn't really
collar
talk.
kinda
He's
thing.
just, yeah. He's a little aloof, right? He's a little disconnected, which is probably me in my group. Like I was definitely floating from group to group my whole life. I just didn't really have like I don't talk to anybody more. I don't know. I don't talk to people much from my childhood at all, honestly, like at all. You know, and I can relate to him a little bit. But I liked how he was just like naive and innocent. I don't know.
He's a
I
little
like
he's
that.
a little slow too, though. Like, I'm not slow, like, but
Yeah,
you
he's
can tell
not
he's
reading
not
the
he's
room
not
as
like
fast
the
as the others.
sharpest.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not the sharpest pencil in the box.
He certainly wasn't. And maybe this is because he doesn't have the background and the horror stories of like growing up that the other guys did. That
Yeah.
he feels more childlike.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
He's
left the
not
comb.
he's not emotionally where any of them are.
Yeah.
Like he's
Cherry
No.
Pez,
Okay.
Cherry Pez, even
Cherry
easy
Pez.
decision, easy decision. Like that answer right there is like the perfect encapsulation of like what a kid would say. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
That's a
know.
good
you
point.
know,
Cherry
feel
Pez
like,
are good though.
do you feel like maybe he exists in this movie almost as kind of like to see what we're pushing the other kids against. These other kids are clearly growing up, and this is kind of like you get to see where they came from, more or less. At some point, they were
Well.
kids just like him, but now they're all going off and becoming adults.
Which is
Mm.
like you can kind of see based on like the way they act as kids. Like some kids are on an upward trajectory, like Gordy, and Gordy's trying to pull Chris up with him on that upward trajectory in life. Who am I thinking of? Corey Feldman's character. He's kind of on that like fucked
He's
up,
a
like
lost cause.
you know he's gonna slip and he's gonna have that downward trajectory and kind of
Yeah.
I don't know. Teddy just kind of has that like neutral, like straight blending in life, not causing a fuss, not doing anything, kind of.
Yeah. Vern. Yeah, he lived a very
Or Vern, sorry.
very simple life. You know. Yeah, like you said, he got married. He probably stayed in the same hometown his whole life and had a quiet life. You know,
Mm-hmm.
which
Which
is yeah.
He's probably really good at being a forklift driver.
Yeah, he's very
Sure.
best forklift operator on Castle Rock.
You know?
And he's probably really happy doing it.
That's true. Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. He's probably like coaches like the softball team or something
Goes
like that.
bowling on Wednesdays with
Yeah.
the guys from work.
Knows
You know,
every-
he's got
yeah.
his life.
Well-adjusted
Got a
human
routine
being.
and he's
Pick up
happy.
Penny.
He's happy in it.
Off the ground.
Well,
I don't know.
That's-
Have we talked about
I feel like-
everything?
yeah.
Was there anything else that we
Have we all
Miss-
grappled with mortality enough?
Right.
I know, it's
yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's like this weird hindsight that like it forces, like Eric was saying, like it forces you to kind of go and like see the comparisons of the choices and experiences you've had in your life and compare them to like these kids' experiences that they had. And I don't know. It's a movie that I love watching, but like will make me cry at the same time because.
Did you cry watching it this time?
Yeah, a little bit.
What
For
part
sure.
got you? What part got you?
It's usually towards the end when he's given like the history of everybody else as like what they went on to do, and then you hear Chris gets murdered trying to like do the right thing essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tough ending.
Yeah. That's a sad thing. All right.
No.
Well,
I don't know. Sorry to bring us down on that.
No, it's I think it's an important
true
movie.
life, though.
It's an important movie to reflect on. Like the first time I watched it, I don't think I was really, I was just along for the ride watching the movie. But this time around, I really was like honed in on the characters and again reflecting on a lot of my childhood and my own life through these characters. So it definitely made me think a lot more this time around.
yeah. Well,
Maybe I want to
Dave-
watch 24 again because Kiefer is. I haven't seen Kiefer in anything.
Right.
24 was
Yeah.
awesome back in the day.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, nothing. I was just gonna say, well, it probably hits you because you're actually somebody. I mean, you're what, 42,
43.
and you've lost
No.
friends young. Like you can kind of relate to that. Like, hey, I can picture them in like 5th grade, but when they got like the 20 or whatever, like you've had some people die that young in your life.
Yeah,
So
and I
that's probably
mean,
what's
everybody
getting me a
has
little
their own path in life, so it's
Mhm.
drugs or cancer or
Right,
You
and
know,
that's what I'm
we
saying.
could
Like
be
this
anything.
movie is saying that these kids, like they have a shot at life. What will I mean? We know what happens to them, but still, like when you're 12, right? The world should not be like dictating your path. You should
for sure
be given the
yeah.
opportunity to make your own future.
Yeah, you got
And
your whole life ahead
some
of
of
you.
us are dealt a card that's a little bit harder. Not if you can be like Teddy or not Teddy, Vern.
Vern.
I mean, that was the
Some want more.
bringing it back to the whole plot of the movie. Like that's the whole point and plot device of Ray Brower, the dead kid. Like your life can be cut short in an instant when you're that young, and there's nothing that anybody can do about it.
It's weird when you're a kid too. Like and like it's weird when you're a kid and like the idea of life and death. It's just,
you're
like, you don't
faced
get
confronted
it,
with that idea. Yeah.
But like you probably would feel like, yeah, it's cool. Let's go find the dead body. We'll be heroes. That's what you would think. You're not thinking about finding a dead kid.
I mean, that's why it
That's
portrays
fucked
it
up,
so well, because they are like
It
that in the
does.
beginning.
It really
But
hits
then,
you. It's like, holy shit.
then when they get
he's
there, it's
dead.
like, yeah, this kid's dead. He's not sleeping. He's not sick. He's dead.
He's dead. And like there's
Being-
only one other movie that really like kind of gets that message across was when we watched Unforgiven, where they go and they find the bad guy in that movie and they like get their revenge or whatever that they're hired for. And the kid that wants to be like Clint Eastwood, who's like an old, veteran gunslinger, he's like freaking out. He says it's a hell of a thing to take someone's life. Took away everything they ever had and everything they were going to have. Like death is a very serious thing. But we're all guilty of it.
Damn,
We love
Brandon.
horror movies. We like military movies. We'll play Call of Duty. Call of Duty is one of the most popular selling video games. You're just going around gunning people. This one's World War One. That was a horrible thing for people to experience. Imagine going
yeah.
through World War One and then somehow surviving to 2023, and kids are like playing, I'm on the German side, or like it's like Germans World War One, I think too. Yeah, they're
The
both.
human
You know what I'm saying?
condition,
But, like,
morbid curiosity. Yeah.
You're not, but like to really be there and really do it, that's a totally different thing. But there's a fantasy, there's like an idea about like finding a dead body or like
Well,
killing somebody.
What I love about it's we all when we're kids we have this idea of what it means to be a grown up and do grown up shit, and then they're faced with grown up shit and this isn't what we thought it was.
Oh yeah.
No,
100%.
this is sad and mundane.
Yeah, this is
Hopefully not.
Like believe in Santa, believe in magic.
hold on to it
Everyone's
as
dead
long
and
as
no
you
one
can.
died.
Yeah, hold on to that innocence. That's right.
So that Adam Sandler in what's it called there? Not Happy Gilmore. Billy Madison when he's
Madison.
squeezing the little kids. Stay here as long as you can.
Yeah, dude.
Cherish it.
That's exactly
Oh,
it.
that's so
That's
good.
perfect.
That's funny. All right, I think we're good on talking Stand By Me. So we'll end here, and then we will wrap up the episode with a fun game of movie 20 questions.
Hey.
All right.
Classic.
All right. We are going to play a round of movie 20 questions. Nikki, have you played 20 questions before?
I've heard of it.
Okay. Rules are simple. The three of you are going to work together to figure out what movie I have in my head. You can ask any question, but all I can say is yes or no. So technically you have 19 of these, and then you have one guess. You could be 5 questions in, but once you ask what movie this is, if you get it wrong, it's over. So you want to make sure. So you use those questions. Other than that, ask away, guys.
I have faith in Nikki's movie knowledge, so I'm confident.
Me too.
And it's a movie. It's not.
Let
a
me guess.
person-place
It's
thing we
Teenage
go to. It's
Mutant
just a
Ninja
movie.
Turtles again. All right. I'll kick it off. Was this movie released before the year 2000?
Yes.
Okay. I think we got to narrow down. Was this movie released before 1990?
No.
All right. 90s movie. Go.
What genre of movie are we talking about?
We have
You
to
gotta-
ask the
well,
genre.
You have to ask the genre.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
It has a genre.
so.
Come back to me.
All right.
I just want to figure out how to phrase it.
Well, no. Here, I'll knock one out. Is this considered an action movie?
No.
Okay.
Is this a horror movie?
No.
No. Okay.
Is it a male or female protagonist?
We could say, is it a male protagonist?
Oh, okay, sorry. Is it a male protagonist?
Yes.
Yes. All right.
It's 5 questions.
Is there sci-fi elements in this movie?
No.
Had to think about that one for a second.
Mm.
So it's more grounded.
Is a relationship central to the plot?
Like that question.
Or is a romantic relationship central to the plot? Rephrase that.
No.
Oh, yeah. So it's not action, not horror, no sci-fi elements.
Is this movie part of a franchise,
There you go. Good question.
or are there multiple movies in this film series?
Yes.
Is this the first movie in a franchise?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
It is interesting.
It wasn't an action movie?
Not action,
not a horror.
and no
Not a
sci-fi.
sci-fi.
No sci-fi elements.
Oh, I had one and it just slipped out of my brain.
Does it center around vehicles?
Ooh.
Very specific. No, that is 10 questions. No.
Damn. Like we're not.
I think we were going there. Is this movie based on a source material?
That is a great question.
Let me Google that really quick.
And I do not think it is.
Oh, okay. So that knocks
Yeah,
out.
it is not based off source material. It is a movie made to be filmed with actors and then put on a screen for people to watch.
This is not words on page. Okay.
Is it feature adults as the core actors?
No.
Oh.
Oh, nice.
All right.
Call.
I think we hit on
Guys, got
something.
yourselves a good. Yeah, there you go.
So let's
Good
see.
to
Hold
see.
on. Let's take a pause here and let's take a quick synopsis. Not action, not horror, not sci-fi. There is a male protagonist. Not a romantic relationship. Yes, part of a franchise. Yes, the first in a franchise. Not vehicle centric. No source material. And what was the last one? Adults as a core is a no.
Yeah, so
Correct.
So we could do
Most
something
likely.
like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, or
what's a 90s franchise starring kids?
starring kids. That's not. I don't. I mean, you know. I wouldn't think that kids would be.
Does it involve sports?
Ooh, that's a good one. I like that.
Ooh.
It does involve sports.
Oh.
Yes.
What you thinking over there?
So that's 13 questions.
Personally, that brings me to The Sandlot.
Oh.
Ooh,
But
very good.
You have to know that there's more than one, and most people don't realize that.
Yes,
Is that
there is
based
a
off
sequel.
of a book or anything?
As far as I know.
Huh.
It would make sense.
Yeah,
It's
that-
a similar, kids,
So that knocks out Honey, I
Coming
Shrunk
of
the
age.
Kids too.
summer hanging around.
Questions it. You got some questions
That's
to.
That's good.
figure
That's
out.
a good call.
That's a very good call there, Nikki. I like that. I did not know that there was more than one.
Is it how many questions?
I mean, it
Yeah.
could be Mighty Ducks.
Oh yeah.
What season does the movie take place in? Or
Yes.
Does it take place in summer?
Yes. 14 questions.
Is it centered around baseball?
Yes.
I think Nikki got it.
Oh.
Let's just make 100% sure though before we do the guess.
Is there a character in the movie named Benny the Jet Rodriguez?
Yes.
There you go.
Going for the kill there.
Do the honors, Nikki.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, you have to catch me up. What are the honors here?
Just say
You can guess the movie
guess
name.
what the
No.
movie is. Yeah.
Is the movie The Sandlot?
It is.
Yeah. There
that
we
was
go.
a good one.
I almost threw you guys off by saying that my wife picked this because when my wife picks it, they have a hard time picking whatever she picks for this. So like one of them was like one of the Ewok
Interesting. I
movies from the
wasn't.
80s.
Yeah.
Like the made for TV?
Yes.
Me and my buddy took a lot of work hunting those things down on VHS.
Oh,
Hey.
okay. We have it on DVD, but not VHS.
Well, when I looked for them on VHS for him, they didn't exist on DVD. And by the time I found them, the DVD had come out. I was really pissed because it was like
oh, shit.
I bought them for him, and then it came out right before Christmas, which is what I'd bought the movies for.
Oh.
That's funny.
Are they as horrible as advertised?
When you're 8, they were awesome.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
I see them with like my child lens nostalgia glasses, so like, yeah, it's cute and whatever, but they're bad movies. Yes, like nobody should be like, what's this about? Like getting a story out of it. It's made for money shit. But
Is it better than the Star Wars Christmas episode? I guess. is
yeah,
like-
pretty much
That's my
everything's better
my
than that.
low bar for Star Wars. Children's
Yeah.
entertainment.
No, but you guys got it.
Sandlot, that's
is
a good call.
That's a good.
Wasn't even on my brain, but like I've watched that movie so many times as a kid, like over and over.
Another good movie.
The franchise threw me off.
Kids.
Well,
I wouldn't have guessed, based on the. I knew
that
there was
was
a
my
sequel,
tip.
but I wasn't thinking about that.
Because the minute he had to look and like really verify, like think about what he said during them, like okay, yeah, that's definitely where we think we're going.
It's a good read right there.
It's a good
I like
call. It's like,
And it was another movie with kids.
yeah,
That's really
Yeah.
just
That's a
the
good
time
call.
I kind of had.
the sequel. Yeah, I've never seen it, but I doubt
You-
it's
you don't want
any
to.
good.
It's lame. It's boring.
No.
It's probably like one of the it's like a classic. Get it? It's like
Well, it
a
was-
Christmas
it
Story
tried to
2 or
remake
like
what they did
something
with the first
stupid.
one.
Yeah,
Just-
It was made like 20 years after they made the original, which is
right,
part of the problem.
right. Dumb.
Now,
Cool.
Christmas Story 2, you're talking about the one with the tops, the fighting tops.
I'd never seen it before, but maybe I don't know.
I actually really liked the movie when I was a kid, A Christmas Story 2, or what it's called. It's not called A Christmas Story 2, but it is.
You're talking about as a summer story or something like that.
Yeah, A Summer Story. I think that's what it's called.
Summer
Oh,
Story.
really?
And it takes place around the World's Fair as part of the context.
Yeah.
Is it the same kid?
No.
It's about Ralphie. It's
Oh, it's about
acting wise, no, but I mean it's the same. It's
Okay.
designed to be the same family.
Nice. That's cool. I didn't even know that existed.
You guys by chance watch the new version,
new
or
one?
the new one with Ralphie?
I checked it
haven't.
out. It's
Old
not-
old Ralphie.
It's all right.
We celebrate Christmas every month in my house, so it's
Well, you're from Cleveland, and that
I-
is where, like, you see leg lamps all over the place.
I've actually drove past the house
Yep.
probably every day for the past couple
Yep.
years.
Really?
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where the house is.
Doesn't someone own it
Yeah,
now?
you go
It
to
used to
bars,
be
they'll
like
have,
a.
leg lamps.
It used to be like a attraction, but didn't someone buy it and someone's like living there now?
The house is there, and I believe somebody else owns it. But there is across the street somebody opened up an actual museum dedicated to it.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's like I said, you get to drive by it. It's in like what's now like a hip neighborhood in Cleveland, I guess. But an old house.
It was old in the movie. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
that's
All right.
cool.
Okay. Well, so we talked about Stand By Me. We got freaking deep as hell with that, and then you guys just crushed a good round of movie 20 questions. Nikki, thank you so much for coming on. It's
great conversation.
meeting
Yeah.
you.
Thanks
I feel
for
like we
having
could
me.
talk a lot. So yeah, we would love to have you on. You're a friend of the show, so we need to do better with having guests on the show because it's always interesting to have just a different voice. Amongst us.
Well, I mean, and as marketing people, to not go out and try and find other people to talk about your podcast just seems like you're leaving money on the table, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
Yep.
Very true.
And that's
So-
that's how I ended up meeting you. As I commented, like, "What's the best way to like get your podcast out to people?" I'm like, well, you have guests, and
Yeah.
you swap podcasts.
Yes. What was it called? You have a term for it? Talk swap?
Show swap.
Show swap?
It's like I'll have you on mine, you have me on yours,
Yeah,
and
that's
it's
perfect.
we each do something for each other.
Yeah, it's great.
There you go.
Yeah, it's cool. So, but thanks again for coming on. If people want to get a hold of you, you threw it out there before, but if you want to remind us,
NickPacone.com will get you to everything I do. Road to Hell filmreviews.com. I'll take you to my film review podcast, and IronAgeMarketing.com will take you to my business where I help small creators with the basics of marketing to help build their fan base and their audiences.
I'm a dummy,
Awesome.
but the way you say your name is Pine Cone, is how you phonetically would say, right? Like it's Pine Cone.
Well, my name is actually Nick Pacone, but people call me Pinecone, so I just ran with it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to
That's
get
great.
into the history of my name, it's actually spelled Piccone when Grandpa came over on the boat, and they had trouble spelling it back then. And as Pecone, I got tired of P in the cone growing up. At about the age that this movie took
I was
place.
just gonna say.
So Pinecone was like a nice. Let's just pull them away from piss.
That's great. That's good. All right. And then if people want to get a hold of us, Eric, how can they do that?
Well, If you want to follow us, you can follow us at Nomads of Fantasy on Twitter and Instagram. You can visit the nomadsoffantasy.com for all your Nomad needs. You can go to the nomadsoffantasy.com/Discord if you want to hop in there and chat with us. We're always talking about video games and movies and whatever else is on our mind. Food, yes. Lots of Pizza Hut talk. Lots of Pizza Hut talk.
Pizza Hut. Please sponsor the show.
If you want to if you want to email us, you can email us at nomadsoffantasy@gmail.com with suggestions, comments, all that good stuff. Play our game, whatmapgame.com. If you have some knowledge on video game maps and you want to test them there. Other than that,
I dare you.
I dare you. That's all I got. Anything else before we head out?
Good.
No? All right. Well, as always, safe travels, Nomads.